Hi, welcome to Lachlan Likes a Thing, a show where I take a thing and see whether or not I like it. Another thing we're looking at in this video is the KEF M500, which is the first pair of portable headphones produced by the prestigious UK audio manufacturer KEF. Now, these headphones retail for a recommended retail price of $299 US or 399 Australian dollars. But this pair is a used pair that I got from another local Australian member of the audio forum headphone.org. Now in this video we're going to go through the design and the build quality and the comfort of the M500, and then we're going to go a little into the sound quality and how it compares to other premium lifestyle headphones on the market today, like the Sennheiser Amperior, the Sennheiser Momentum, and the Audio Technica ES10. Now, KEF is probably better known as a very prestigious British loudspeaker manufacturer, and although I haven't heard any KEF speakers myself personally, I do know that they'd been known in the past for making some pretty innovative and pretty high-tech stuff. I have to say, in terms of build quality and design, I'm honestly a bit surprised that the M500 is the company's first attempt at a portable headphone, because it honestly seems like they've been doing it for decades. And the reason why I say this is because it's obvious that whoever designed this headphone has done their research and their homework into what makes a good portable headphone. Starting off with the design of this headphone, first of all, it's just a minimalist, really sleek, really eye-catching modern design, and I think it looks great. In terms of the materials they've used in the design of this headphone, the entire frame is made mostly out of solid aluminium, and a few of these pieces, especially the single piece of aluminium here, are just really solid and premium feeling. The materials they chose for the ear pads, it's just really soft and supple. I'm actually not sure whether this is synthetic leather or animal leather, but it feels really nice. And at the same time, this headphone is quite lightweight. It's 208 grams, which puts it on par with something like the Sennheiser Momentum. Now, with this design, it has a detachable cable, which is always a plus, and it's a flat style of cable that doesn't tangle very easily, and it terminates in a 90-degree plug, which means that it doesn't stick out of your pockets, and that's really good. Now in the box you get two cables. You get a standard 3.5mm cable, and you also get the 4-pin remote cable for iOS and iPhone and those kind of devices. It attaches to the headphone with a 2.5mm plug, and unfortunately the socket is fairly recessed, so I'm pretty sure that this will only accept cables from KEF, and you won't be able to use any third-party cables in case you break the cable. The other thing about this design is that the ear pads initially I thought were not removable, which is something that I would have dinged the design for, but apparently I've seen videos where you can remove these ear pads. I have not been able to work out how to do it, but apparently that's a thing that you can do. Now, as you notice, the headphone does fold up, and it folds up into a more compact shape, which is a big plus, and I think it trumps the Sennheiser Momentum in this regard. And it also comes with this really nice compact carrying case, which you can just put the headphone into. It's a really nice, well thought out package. So kudos to KEF for getting it right the first time. The only bad things I can say about this design is that I'm not too sure about the long-term durability of this hinge mechanism. It seems fairly solid to me, but this does seem like a point of the design which could fail after a while. And the headphone does produce a little bit more creaking in the frame than I would like to see. Now, considering that this is a used pair, I don't know what this headphone has gone through, but it doesn't feel quite as solid when you kind of swivel it around on the headband as something like the Sennheiser Momentum or the Sennheiser Amperior. So moving on to the ergonomics of the M500, I'm happy to report that the good news does continue, because the M500 is an extremely comfortable headphone. Even though it's an on-ear headphone and the ear pads do rest on top of your ears, I do find that it is more comfortable than a lot of over-ear headphones. because the ear pads are just very soft and pillowy, and the whole thing is just very lightweight with a very lightweight clamping force, and it's just very comfortable as a result. Now, two things to note. One thing is that it still is an on-ear headphone. So in hot weather, it still does press on top of your ears and it might get a little sweaty. And the other thing is that because clamping force is relatively light, it doesn't feel as secure on the head as something like, say, the Sennheiser Amperior or the Sennheiser HD25, which are modeled on DJ designs. In terms of noise isolation, the M500 is probably a little above average in its class for on-ear headphones. It isn't fantastic. It's not going to block out a huge amount of noise, but it is still pretty decent, and I'd be more than happy to kind of travel around with this headphone. So the design and the ergonomics of the M500 are fantastic, but how does it sound? Well, I reckon the M500 sounds almost as good as it looks. So it has a signature that I think a lot of people would enjoy quite a bit. It's got a overall sound signature which is warmer than neutral. It's not completely bass heavy, but it is definitely got an emphasis in terms of the bass and the sub bass elements of the sound. It's very chesty and authoritative in sound. I do find that the bass can sound a little blunt and just a little loose at times, but it's not something that really detracts from the overall experience unless you're directly comparing to other headphones in its class. In terms of the treble frequencies and the vocals, it's a bit rolled off. It has a slight bit of, smoothed off kind of vocals that make it sound just a little less clean than I would personally prefer, but some people might like that slightly less aggressive approach. And in terms of sound staging, it's quite decently wide for an on-ear headphone. It's not mind-blowing, but it's certainly not compressed like a lot of other smaller on-ear headphones. So let's move on to more specific comparisons between the M500 and some of my other favorite portable on-ear headphones. Now, firstly, let's compare with the Sennheiser Momentum. Now, the Sennheiser Momentum was one of the first headphones that I reviewed. Actually, it was the first headphone that I reviewed on my channel. And it definitely is the only portable headphone that I own that has a similar level of build quality and comfort with the M500. Now, in terms of sound, the Sennheiser Momentum is definitely the more mellow and the more relaxed sounding of the two headphones. They are both warm sounding headphones, but the Momentum doesn't have quite as much emphasis on the bass and the mid-bass frequencies. And the treble, I think, is a little more defined, it's a little more forward, and a bit more textured and more interesting on the Momentum. Now, in terms of bass, again, I think the Momentum is just a little bit tighter than the M500, but it's not a huge difference. Personally, I prefer the Momentum just because it's a bit leaner in sound, but I'd be very happy with either of these two. Now, compared with the Sennheiser Amperior, which is my current favorite portable headphone, the Sennheiser Amperior is definitely more aggressive sounding than the M500 because it has a much more forward, much more emphasized vocal section, particularly in the lower treble. So it has a much more aggressive sound, which I think is particularly well suited for rock music and electronic music. And overall, the Amperior has, I think, more of a tight sound overall. It's more defined, especially in terms of the bass. The Amperior has some of the tightest bass that I've heard on a portable headphone. The flip side is that the Amperior has a bit more of a compressed, a bit more of congested soundstage. So if that's really important to you, I think the M500 has the edge in that regard. Now, let's compare to the Audio-Technica ES10, which is a bit more of a rare headphone outside of Japan. I actually think that of all these headphones, the closest to the M500 in sound is the Audio-Technica ES10. It does have that kind of warmth to it. The only difference I would have to say is that the ES10 has a wider soundstage than the M500. In terms of bass, it doesn't have quite as much emphasis on the sub bass as the M500, but I do find the ES10 is actually tighter overall in terms of the bass than the M500. And in terms of the vocals, the peak in the vocals on the Audio-Technica ES10 is just a bit higher, like all Audio-Technica cans. So it has a bit more of a a bit more of an emphasized signature in terms of vocals that particularly makes female vocals stand out in a way that they don't on the M500. So I've gone through all these headphones, and it's kind of like I'm saying the M500 isn't quite as good as all of these. And that's true to an extent. I do prefer all these headphones to the M500, but I would still very happily regard this headphone as being on a similar tier with all these other portable headphones, and especially considering the excellent build quality and design of the M500, I'm very, very, very happy to recommend these as a really good portable headphone, and I'm quite sure that you would be very happy if you took these home and had a listen to these. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video if you found it helpful, and you can check out some of my other reviews on my channel and subscribe for future reviews. Thanks to everyone who's liked my other videos and left their comments and subscribed to my channel, and I'm looking forward to your comments on the M500. I know you've been waiting for quite a long time for my review of these headphones. You can talk to me about gear on Facebook at facebook.com/LachlanLikesAthing, or on Twitter at LachLikesAthing. And again, it's that time of year again. We're rapidly approaching Christmas and the holidays. So in case I don't see you again before the end of 2003, I hope you have a really happy holidays and a happy new year.